Welcome everyone to third episode of My Blessing in Disguise, a series of conversations I have with really amazing humans who want to share with me their experiences and reflections of this year. Um, these are people whose lives have been somehow affected by the situation this year, by the pandemic, by the political and social problems that resurfaced this year. But um, they actually decided to turn their lives around, pivot in their businesses, do something, whatever they could do to find something positive in these situations. So today I have an amazing guest with me, Ramfis Myrthil. Thank you so much for joining me, Ramfis, today. Ramfis is a filmmaker, speaker, and a consultant based in New York. He's an owner of a film agency called Beast of the East. Am I right?
Yeah, so it's a film production company, but yeah, Beast of the East Productions.
And we met at the end of last year through a networking event online. Thank you, Internet. And we just stayed connected. And I watched you online doing amazing things this year, even though, your industry changed a lot this year. I've seen you grow and do amazing things. So I got really inspired, Ramfis, to invite you today and speak about your reflections and what happened this year. So if I could hand it over to you, if you could tell us a little bit more about yourself and who you are, what you want us to know about you, and then we'll go on to talk about this year.
Awesome. By the way, three is my lucky number, my favorite number, and this is your third one. This is so awesome, by the way. I just wanted to throw that
No
out.
coincidences.
Absolutely. So yes, I'm born in Queens, New York. I actually grew up in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and Creole was like my first language. French was my second. English was my third language, and then I lived there for a while with my grandparents, and growing up, and then I lived in Miami for a little bit, and then came back to New York to live with my parents. And through the many journeys, in this life, I feel like I've lived many lifetimes. Where I am now, where my path is, like my goal as a human being is to leave people touched, moved, and inspired. And how I'm able to do that is through storytelling. Whether it is a uplifting, inspiring story to help change the world, or sometimes it could be something that's a little dark or heavy that makes people really think. It gives you critical thinking, and you reflect on the choices or decisions that you've made or that you are making. So that's really my motivation. And I particularly represent marginalized voices. These are individuals that they can't really get their voices out there, they don't have the opportunities. So, in particular, women, people of color, and the queer community are the three areas I focus on. A lot of the films that I've made, or that I'm making or looking at making, are in that category. I'd say about 80% of that. And I've had, films that have played all around the world at the Cannes Film Festival, at the Sundance Film Festival, Tribeca Film Festival, and everywhere else in between. And I've had films playing movie theaters. I've had films go, to Amazon or other, streaming platforms. And I've become, I do this thing called Toastmasters. It's international. I don't know if you have it out there, but it's a speaking organization that really heightens, your professional speaking. So I've done that for a bit, and I speak all around the world, around storytelling, film finance, producing, and then I consult, filmmakers all around the world as well. And I consider myself a light worker. My job is, or my responsibility in this lifetime is to ignite the world and, get people to do things.
That's beautiful. I'm so inspired by your work. and just yes, everything you do, it sounds like you're really touching so many lives in so many different ways through your work. That's really beautiful. And okay, so this year happened.
Mhm.
You work internationally, you travel, you actually, we were supposed to meet each other this year in March in London because you were coming to a festival and you invited me. I was so honored. And it never happened because the pandemic started in March. So what happened? How was your work, your life affected?
I guess during a normal year without a pandemic, I'm kind of weaving in and out, domestically and internationally. So I think I was set up. I mean, I was in LA December. I spent a lot of time in LA, even though I'm based in New York. So I was in LA, I think December to basically February. And then, there's this big film and music festival called South by Southwest. It's in Austin, Texas. It's usually 10 days of film, 10 days of music, and the film usually starts first. So I was scheduled to speak there. I spoke there last year. So I was in LA getting ready to fly to Austin. And then literally like a couple days before the festival, it was canceled. So I was surprised. I couldn't believe it. Like, really, this is happening? And so many of my colleagues felt that same way, especially for the state of Texas. I know we're the United States of America, but every state is like its own country, like similar to Europe. And Texas, the mindset out there is that it's its own country from the United States. They do their own thing, complete different laws. So like, really, this is happening in Austin? So I stayed in LA, and my original plan was to fly from LA to Austin, Austin to New York, and then I was going to fly to London because I had the premiere of my film. And then I was going to fly to Cleveland. No, I was going to fly back to New York, from New York to Cleveland. And from there, I didn't know where I was going to fly because I had another film releasing at the same time in LA. So I was either going to go to Chicago because we had a premiere set up there, or LA, or I was going to fly to Philly and then from Philly to Boston for this film that was, supposed to play in London. So I had about like at least 10 flights. I had a bunch of flights, booked, and this entire itinerary, and my spring was laid out. I think the following month I had a wedding, in April, and I had to be in Florida to speak at an event for several days. And then I was going to fly back to New York and then head to Cannes, go to Cannes and speak at the Cannes Film Festival again, because I spoke there last year. And then I think I was going to Germany. I had this whole thing, and I had a movie that was going to shoot, I think, in Louisiana. And I was just trying to figure out, oh my God, I have to be here, there, and that's how I work the best, when it's chaotic, where there's a million things happen. Somehow I'm able to really hone in and focus and just get things done. And obviously everything was turned upside down. So my film that was going to, open up in theaters, didn't open up in theaters, and it ended up going straight to Amazon. And it wasn't really a choice that we had. I think our buyer just did that. And we just worked with it, and people were just reaching out like, oh my God, I love this movie. I'm like, what movie? Oh, your movie, 8 Slices. I'm like, wait, 8 Slices was released? I wasn't even aware of it. So, it was mixed feelings because you want to be part of that decision-making process and you don't want to be caught off guard. But, on the good side was at least it was available for people to see, so that happened, in about April. I want to say it was, out in April. And then my film Cicada, which is based off a true story. I became really close with the filmmaker and the team. It's about a bisexual male that gets involved in an interracial relationship during the Phil Sandusky trial. And the Phil Sandusky trial was a huge thing in the US 7 years ago. It was this coach at Penn State University that was sexually abusing, the boys there. And he was like a prolific, picture like the Michael Jordan of coaching, and that's basically what he was. And people kind of ignored it. They put it under the table, but it came out. And, Matthew, who's the filmmaker, had gone through this. So, this story was just so important to us because he was finally sharing it with the world. He's being vulnerable. and we went through hell and back to be able to make this film. And to have 2 days before our premiere, it just, we not even just our premiere, we were the opening film, and I was going to meet you there. I mean, we sold out tickets within 2 hours. I think like 1,500 tickets to 3 screenings, and we had all these meetings set up, buyers that were coming to see the movie, and then it just went dark. So I was very sad, for my team, for the film, for Matt, because here he is exposing himself, and we don't know what's going to happen, when the world's going to open up again. um and at the same time, I'm a type 1 diabetic. I'm insulin dependent. When I flew back to New York, I ended up getting sick. I was sick for a couple of weeks. And The following month, my mother and my uncle were both hospitalized. My uncle was on a ventilator. He's a first responder. So it didn't look that well. And there was an average of about 1,000 New Yorkers dying a day, so it was really grim at one point. There was no hospital beds, and my father, also had suffered from a fire that happened in November, and it was trying to get him to all his appointments, like 2 or 3 appointments a day. And at that time, you couldn't go into the hospital with your loved one, because you had to have like a letter or a notice. So it was a really hard time, with all of this kind of coming down. I think April, I completely shut down. I didn't have anything go on. I have a newsletter, I think, that goes out every month. My newsletter didn't even go out in May because I didn't work on this in April. So it was a crazy shift. And then, in May is, I felt that, a part of me, appreciated some of the things because it felt like nature was benefiting and the environment, and people were, everyone in the world was affected, and there was a level of kindness. And then right before Memorial Day, the end of May, there was, this horrific murder, that everyone knows about now, about George Floyd getting, shot and killed. And um, it's something that's been going on for many years in the United States, different cities. It's happened to so many, young, Black men, and it took for this event to really open up and get the world to get behind it. And I want to say it was the first time I actually saw, not just Black people, but all people get behind this and say it was wrong. It was like for the first time the world was able to see this. It's been happening for so long, but people either didn't care, or they weren't aware of it, or they didn't take it serious. And even though it was a horrific event, it kind of opened up the world to the changes that really have to happen. And I think we still have a ways to go. But it positively impacted the world in terms of taking action, non-for-profits, really getting behind the cause. And, through this, where I am really strong is, again, in my storytelling and helping, get these stories out. So, May, I kind of came up, because my family started getting better. I was better health wise, and I had a call to action. And I was already in the process of putting together this, movie, around mental illness, and it dealt with also race in America. And it was just kind of like, the perfect timing as, all of these, marches started, and then there was, riots, and then, issues with the police. And, there was just so much, back and forth and political, and, our president at the time just doing things that just weren't really beneficial, towards the country, where it felt like we were really divided. And, as a human race, we're social beings, we're all the same. We all want shelter, we all want love, and we all want food. It doesn't matter what language you speak, what culture you are. So my, plan of action was that, I started testing. I was coming up negative for COVID. I tested positive for antibodies, and I felt incredibly confident. And I said, you know what? I need to head to LA and, work with my team. And I quarantined for a couple of weeks, and, I worked on this amazing, project called 5150, where, people at 5150, which is a code when you are a risk to yourself or others, and you're held for about 72 hours. So, this story 5150 follows this young, guy named Celeb, and he's like a Kanye West character. And you've seen this happen many times with like Britney Spears, Martin Lawrence, where, your favorite, celebrity is like loved, and then they're shamed, then hated. And then when they die, they're loved again. You've seen that happen with Kobe and, many other celebrities. So, this story, deals with the civil unrest with race in America. And I got to work with some of the most astonishing, filmmakers in the business. David Oyelowo, came on as an executive producer. You know him probably from the film Selma, where he plays Martin Luther King, and he's, starred in a lot of huge movies. And we had just an amazing, cast and crew, in front and behind the camera. And ironically, as I'm about to say this was one of the best sets I've been on. Even though we had to wear masks, we had to socially distance, we had to do all these things that we don't normally do. The people that came on board this project were people that really believed in it and that wanted to make a difference. And, it wasn't a huge Hollywood budget. And at the time, everyone, that was a freelancer was on unemployment. So a lot of these people that came on, they were getting, I think, regular unemployment and pandemic unemployment, and they were making more money on that than actually being in production. But they said, you know what? I want to forego my unemployment because I believe in this material. I believe in this team, and I want to help make a change. I want to stand for something. And I worked with some of the most kindest, most talented people, on this project. And we were one of only two that shot during this time. The only other project that shot was, like Michael Bay had this, movie that he was shooting. And we were able to kind of like, set the tone and help with guidelines. And we did our own contact tracing. Like we were ahead of a lot of things that were going on. And we became like a model, a role model for what the business should be doing. And then I implemented that in my newsletter. And I had many people, I have a newsletter list of about 5,000 people. So I had a lot of people reach out, say, oh my God, this was so helpful. I can't believe you were filming and how you were able to get it done. So I was able to give a lot of guidance, in terms of that, speak at events about what we did, and also do consulting around that work, and really uplift like my community. Because in our community, we all want to help each other. That's the way of like an independent filmmaker, because we work from job to job to job, recommendation to recommendation. And, this was a period of time when no one was able to really work, or they were trying to figure out like, how do I keep my cast and crew safe? Because that's what comes first. Safety, safety, safety. And I felt that was just really, again, I don't believe in accidents, coincidences. This was a calling for me to do, like I got sick. I was involved with this project. It had to go now, and we made it happen, and we got it done. And was able to share my knowledge, experience, and, resources, along that.
Wow, that's so powerful, because from everything you said to me, your life was impacted in so many ways. And, I think many people would actually just stayed in action at that point, because it's like you were always traveling, you were always on the move. You actually said like you love the chaos. It's almost like you thrive in this kind of when things like that happen. But this was not the same, right? Like I'm guessing there were a few months that you couldn't work at all because the world actually stopped. So I wonder if you found the inspiration and the creativity in those 3 months, or was it just like you actually never stopped and it just created, like while you had to stay at home, you still worked? Or was there a time that you actually really slowed down, and this is where you found the ideas and inspiration for like the rest of the year, moving forward from there?
Yeah, that's actually a really great question. So after I got sick and everything basically shut down, I shut down. I shut down for a month, and that's unheard of. I just got really quiet. I kind of just disconnected from the world. Really wasn't speaking to anybody, just like my direct family, and that was really it. I was probably in one of the darkest places in my entire life. It's just like everything was just turned down upside down, and I just didn't know how to adapt. I felt that I didn't have control, so during that time period I didn't have any creativity. I was maybe watching a couple of things here and there, but I wasn't really active. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to pivot. I knew that I couldn't speak in any live events. At the time I was not, doing any Zooms. And it was recommended not to really see anyone. And there was a lot going on with my family. So for a good, I'd say month to maybe 6 weeks, I was really, shut down. I didn't do much. And it wasn't until I got better, that was key. I had to feel better and get better. And then my family, my uncle, like I said, was hospitalized. He was on a ventilator. So once he started getting better, and then my mother was hospitalized too. And once I saw that, I felt a little bit more encouraged. And I'm pretty healthy. I mean, even though I'm a type 1 diabetic, I'm all about holistic, medicine, eating the right foods, and I meditate and I do energy work and I work with energy healers. So I think as I started to get out of this, I went hardcore. I started running 3 to 5 days a week with some of the guys at my gym, at this high school, Westbury High School in Long Island. And we'd work out for anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours in the cold. It was cold, but we had to, and I'm not really a runner, like I ran, I think during high school track, but since, we're talking almost like 20 years, I haven't ran. And I couldn't, the gyms were closed. So I wanted to be productive. And it's something about, like when you are, eating right, sleeping correctly, and working out, you feel positive and your vibration and frequency kind of go up. So, I started feeling better, and I wanted to create and I wanted to do things. And there was this project 5150 that, I was looking at and interested in. And I really liked the team, and I didn't, I don't like to let people down, so I really wanted to show up, and I knew they needed the support, and I really got behind it. And I got one of my investors to come in and commit, and we just hit the ground running. I was doing maybe 14, 16-hour days from May all the way into production, into July, like nonstop, so most of it was from home or a remote location, up until we started maybe pre-production and production. But I just kind of like self-motivated myself between the creativity, between the health and wellness, just getting myself out. And then, start like, wait a second, I have a newsletter. People like to hear what I have to say. I have a responsibility. And I just rose to the occasion to just be proactive and make it work.
That's beautiful. So sounds to me like you always find your motivation in like how to help other people. Like your focus is always like on other people, how, and it just like shines through everything you talk about. You said at the beginning you feel like you're a light worker, and it sounds to me like that kind of, you find strength in that and motivation even in times like that, like you know things happen that are unexpected. And um
Well, there's something that I learned, and I'm going to give credit to this man. I've never met him. I've read some of his books and listened to his audiobooks, but Kevin Trudeau always said, when your attitude is right, the facts don't matter.
mm,
So it's really how, you look at the world, your perspective, is the glass half empty, is it half full? And I just hold myself accountable, for that. That's my responsibility, I feel, to do that. When the creator, God, Allah, whatever you want to call him, the higher force, gives you certain, skills, tools. You have to, take them out of the toolbox and share them with the world. It's not for you to hoard and keep to yourself. That's the whole point. Like this world is about give and take, give and take. And I'm more of a giver. The more you give, the more you get. It's like an unwritten law, and I don't know, like it makes me feel great when I do good things for my community, for other people. Um, it's just something I do. It's just something I'm wired to do, at this point, because I've been doing it for so long. You're not born that way, but when you practice that way of thinking and the way of taking action, it just is inevitable.
Mm, that's so beautiful. So, if you were to share with us, what have you learned this year? What were your biggest, I don't know, insights or realizations this year, as you maybe had to stop and, kind of slow down a little bit, or maybe as you were creating, as you were in, like, getting in action? What did you learn?
Well, I definitely learned how to use Zoom. I'd never used Zoom before. Like I was so anti-Zoom. I was one of those like, no, I'm gonna wait. I'll do it in person. And so it definitely, made me more open. Not that I wasn't open before, but in order to thrive in this world, you have to do everything virtual. So I think once I decided to to make that choice or that leap, I became, like nonstop on Zoom, to the point where, because again, I speak at so many venues and I haven't been able to speak at a lot of these places. So, I got some really cool placements, being able to, speak at the Rain Dance Film Festival in the UK. And I was the only American. It was all these, the guy that financed the King's Speech and the London Film Fund and, Ramfis, the American, so that was pretty cool. I spoke at a bunch of colleges, universities. I started my own program with this organization called the Parity Project, because in the entertainment business, I want to say it's only like 13% of people of color being hired, specifically Black people. And I partnered up with this organization to teach historically Black colleges and universities, students and alum, about ways to move up in the business and open up opportunities. I partnered up with a company and created internship opportunities, and got some amazing panelists to come on board to share insight about creating jobs or getting jobs, and then a lot of mentorship. That's something that I really kind of like picked up, and it was from, I've always done mentorship, but because of where we are now, there's so many people that need guidance, so young kids that haven't been able to finish school or can't finish school, and even people that have been able to go to university, like NYU. I have a team of 6 out of NYU, and there were so many things that we're good at but they weren't aware of. So being able to open those doors and just kind of give back to those communities was really important to me. So yeah, so definitely the learning curve with Zoom, and then the capacity of I think mental illness has really come close to me, because I was actually seeing someone that was in that space, and I got to learn a lot of that world, and I didn't know, I knew it existed, but I got a better awareness. And then being obviously involved with 5150, learning about this being held for 72 hours against your will, and how you could be deemed like unfit for society. And then it personally touching home, with my father had gone through this tragic event, and I said, with the fire, and he's been suffering with trauma, and and it's turned into mental illness. So having that capacity and becoming aware, and it's something that I never really considered or looked at in my business, but now when I speak to my team, I'm like, listen, if something happened, obviously someone passed, or I always want you to go take care of your family and focus on yourself. But if you can't participate mentally because you checked out or something, that is fine. And I've never had those conversations before, but now I make it a point whenever I bring someone new on or I'm collaborating with people is that, hey, your mental, wellness is the most important thing. So that's really opened up, and I've become like kind of like a champion and advocate, for that. And I completely get it, because in April I was done, I was in a dark cloud, and I had to really push myself out to get out of that. And just seeing, how many people, so many people in my industry and outside of my industry have been affected. And right now, if you're in the United States or definitely New York, there's like a long list, a waiting list to be able to get a psychiatrist or, therapist to be able to deal with your mental, well-being. So that was a huge takeaway that, I took away from this year, and a focus that I'm going to, implement throughout the rest of my, existence.
Mm. Wow, it's such an important message. Like, if your mental health is suffering, you have to take care first of yourself. I've noticed that often people who do suffer from, I don't know, depression or anxiety, they tend to actually, often keep it to themselves and then like go and help other people. They don't want to burden other people. And as a result of that, because often no one else knows about it, their mental health suffers even more. So that's such a powerful message, actually. So simple, but actually not that easy for people sometimes to just stop and get help or help themselves. So that's a powerful message. I was actually going to ask you, if you were to give one piece of advice or wisdom to people who are listening, what would it be? But I have a feeling that's the one. But if maybe there's anything else you would like to add, what would it be?
Well, definitely that's number one. Unfortunately, I'd lost two friends this year to suicide. One that very close, and I just didn't see it coming. One was right before the pandemic, and one was, like in August or so. And these are people that you would never have no idea, that are going through this. So I'd say, most important thing is check on your loved ones, your friends. When people just say, "Yeah, I'm okay," are you really okay?
Mm.
Like, what is going on? And for me, I'm when it comes to like that part of my life, I'm really private, but I have a couple of people I could go to. Again, I believe I'm very spiritual, so I work with, an energy healer, and that's what I did. Like when this whole thing initially happened with my father, I, went to this. I call him kind of like, like my ace in my back pocket. He's like one of the most powerful energy healers, I think in on this planet. So I went and saw him. I had a really good session, and that helped. And then there's another energy healer I love working with. And, we talk at least once a week, sometimes multiple times a week. He sends me, guided meditation or mantras to do. And I do it in the morning and at night. It's a great way to start your day, just to start in calm and peace, and however you want to do it. Like what I do is I call light, to myself, because light is the most powerful thing in the world, light and love. And it makes me feel powerful. And I do my mantras and I start my day and I feel like invincible and powerful. So, without that, outlet, I probably would not have been able to get out, in April, and that's what really I was doing every day. I have crystals and stones, and I was using all of that. So I'd say it's important to have at least one person, to go to and be able to get this out, because you can't hold it in. It's not good for your cells. Your cells have to be happy, you have to be in a good mood, and just know everything's going to work out. And just to have, I kind of like the same thing, have like a community. If you're not open or comfortable with meeting people in person, definitely, connect with people, either video or phone. Don't be, anti-social or to yourself, because because human beings need interaction. and I thrive the best when I'm in community, like when I'm speaking and around my other filmmakers that are doing the same kind of work. We boost one another, and that's not just in film. I just think across the board, whatever industry you're in, or not even an industry, if you're religious, or you're in a sorority, fraternity group, the sense of community goes a long way because everyone uplifts each other, and that's just so important. So that'd be like the last nugget that I have to share.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I think this year we really experienced the importance of connection and community. And as you said, having at least that one person in your corner, be it a coach, spiritual teacher, or healer, or whatever, or someone who can just go to and and talk about vulnerable stuff, about stuff that bothers you, is so important, so important. That's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Ramfis, for sharing all of this, your wisdom, your brilliance, your inspiration, with me and with everyone who's watching, with my community. Um, a last question: if people wanted to find out more about you and your work, where can they find you?
Sure, absolutely. Ramfis.net is basically my name. RAMFIS.net is my website. You can email me there. I'm also on social media. So my Instagram is Ramfis, my last name Myrthil, Myrthil official. And LinkedIn and Facebook is the same thing, Ramfis Myrthil. You could find me on there. Those are the best ways to connect with me. And thank you
Awesome.
for having me. This was incredible. I'm honored to be number 3 on your platform.
Actually, all my guests are number one, but since you like number three, so you're my third number one guest.
Sweet. I'll take that. That works for me. Third time's a
Thank
charm.
you so much for your time. Thank you for joining. Have a beautiful end of the year, Christmas, New Year, festive season, and good luck in 2021. All the best.
Thank you. And same to you and the community.
Thank you so much, Ramfis.
All right. Au revoir.